Most people think manipulation works because the other person is smarter, more confident, more persuasive, more dominant. Usually that is not the real reason. Manipulation works when it gets access to one thing: your self-doubt. Not doubt about them, doubt about yourself. That is the opening. The moment you stop trusting what you felt, what you noticed, what you meant, what you saw, the power shifts. Because now the conversation is no longer about what happened. Now it is about whether you are even allowed to believe your own mind. That is where control begins. The people who are hardest to manipulate are not always the loudest, not always the coldest, not always the most intimidating. Usually they have one quieter trait. They trust their own perception under pressure, not blindly, not arrogantly, not because they think they are always right, but because when something feels off, they do not abandon themselves just because someone else sounds confident. That is a very different kind of strength. Because manipulation rarely begins with obvious cruelty. It begins with confusion, a comment that feels slightly wrong, a joke that cuts a little too deep, a promise that keeps moving, a story that changes just enough to make you question your memory, a conversation that leaves you feeling guilty even though you were the one who got hurt. Most people notice that moment, then they erase it. Maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm being dramatic, maybe they did not mean it like that, maybe I should let it go. And sometimes that is maturity, but sometimes that is the exact moment your instincts get pushed out of the room. That is why manipulation is so dangerous. It does not always force you. It teaches you to override yourself. And once that starts, something strange happens. You begin explaining their behavior for them. You minimize what happened before they even deny it. You edit your words to avoid their reaction. You rehearse simple conversations in your head. You start needing massive proof just to trust a feeling that used to be obvious. That is one of the clearest signs something is wrong. When honesty starts to feel like a trial. When clarity starts to feel like conflict. When your reality keeps needing permission. The trait that protects you is not aggression. It is self-trust under pressure. The ability to say, something about that did not sit right with me, and I am not going to erase that feeling just because this person wants an easier version of events. That is where manipulation starts to break. Because manipulators need movement. They need you doubting, second-guessing, explaining, chasing clarity from the same person, creating confusion. Self-trust interrupts that cycle. It changes what you pay attention to. You stop obsessing over isolated moments, and you start watching patterns. Not what they said once, what they keep doing. Not how convincing the apology sounded, what changed after it. Not how intense the connection feels, how consistent it is when things get uncomfortable. That shift matters, because isolated moments can always be explained away. One lie can be reframed. One guilt trip can be disguised as stress. One disappearing act can be blamed on a hard week. One cruel comment can be passed off as a joke. But patterns tell the truth. Patterns expose intent. And people who trust themselves know how to watch for patterns. They compare words to behavior, apologies to change, affection to consistency, charm to accountability. That is where manipulative people start losing power, not when you become colder, when you become harder to confuse. And there is another reason this trait matters. Manipulation feeds on urgency. Answer now. Forgive now. Decide now. Explain now. Prove your loyalty now. Calm me down now. Pressure is not random. Pressure shrinks your thinking. It pushes you to react before you reflect. But people with self-trust do something manipulators hate. They slow the moment down. They say, I need to think about that. They say, that is not how I remember it. They say, we are not moving past this that quickly. They say, maybe you are uncomfortable, but I am still paying attention. That is power. Quiet power. Not dramatic. Not loud. Not performative. Just solid, and solid people are very difficult to control. This is why manipulative people often attack your tone before they attack your point, because if they can make you defend how you said something, you may forget what you were saying. So suddenly the issue is your attitude, your delivery, your sensitivity, your timing. Anything except the thing you noticed. Self-trust brings you back to center. Maybe my tone was not perfect. That does not make the pattern unreal. That sentence alone can protect a lot of people. Because the goal is not to become paranoid. The goal is to stop betraying yourself just to keep the peace. Healthy people do not need you disconnected from your own perception to stay close to them. That is worth remembering. They may disagree with you. They may misunderstand you. They may even get frustrated with you. But they do not need you confused in order to win. That need for your confusion is the tell. So what is the one trait that makes you nearly impossible to manipulate? You do not surrender your inner signal just because somebody else is louder than it. You stay calm. You notice the pattern. You slow the pressure down. And you keep one hand on your own reality the entire time. Because the moment you can do that, manipulation becomes expensive. And the people who depend on confusion usually disappear the moment clarity stops working on you.